To stay alive, he started drinking something most people can't even look at without disgust. Day 7 in the Sahara. His tongue was so swollen he could barely swallow. His urine was almost black. Skin was peeling off his face in dry sheets. He lay inside a half-buried stone hut. Above him, silent shapes hung from the ceiling. Below him, the sand was stained with what he'd done just to survive one more day. This was supposed to be a race. A marathon. Something he had trained months for. Back home in Sicily, his wife believed he'd be gone for a week. He'd run the race. He'd come back sunburned and tired. He always came back. So how did a desert marathon turn into a 9-day fight with death? By the end of this story, you'll know the 3 decisions that quietly kept him alive when the Sahara had already written him off. His name was Mauro Prosperi. Morocco. The Marathon des Sables, roughly 250 kilometers across the Sahara over several days, one of the most brutal races on Earth. Runners carry their own food and gear. Organizers give them limited water and a shared tent at night. That's it. Among them, a 39-year-old Italian police officer and former modern pentathlete. Mauro Prosperi. Fit, disciplined, tough. For the first few stages, everything went a plan. Run, walk, treat blisters. Collapse exhausted in the tent. The desert was brutal, but still felt controlled. He had no idea that on stage 4, he was about to make a choice that almost killed him. Stage 4, morning. Runners left camp, spread across the dunes, following small markers in the sand. By midday, the sky began to change. A dark smear on the horizon. Wind picking up. The first sting of sand against his skin. Then the storm hit. The air turned brown. Sand blasted his face and eyes. The world shrank to just a few meters of swirling dust. Markers vanished. Footprints disappeared in seconds. The race route was gone. Inside that chaos, Mauro had 2 options. Drop down, cover himself, and wait it out. Or keep moving and hope he could stay roughly on course. Stopping felt like asking to be buried alive. It felt like disappearing. So he chose to move. This decision made sense by race rules. But by the desert's rules, it was deadly wrong. For hours, half-blind, he pushed through the storm, guessing the direction. When the wind finally eased and the sky cleared, he looked up expecting to see flags, tents, other runners. He saw nothing. Just desert every way he turned. Dunes, rock, flat, empty ground. No markers. No runners. No helicopters in the sky. He checked his compass, checked his map. Told himself he was only a little off course. Just a small correction needed. So he picked a direction, north. Keep going north, he thought, and he'd hit a road, a village, something. But what he didn't know yet, and wouldn't know for days, was that he'd already left the race area entirely. He wasn't a little off course. He was walking into a completely different country. We'll come back to that number later. When you hear it, you won't believe it. For now, Mauro made decision 1, the one that bought him his first extra days of life. He stopped thinking like a racer and started thinking like a survivor. He sliced his resources into tiny pieces. Water was rationed to drops. He walked only in the coldest hours, early morning, late afternoon. During midday sun, he covered up, lay low, and hid from the heat. He stretched his food, dried fruit, nuts, compact rations, into the smallest possible portions. And he kept one backup plan in his head. A plan so disgusting, he didn't even want to think about it yet. Far away, search planes were already in the air. But they were sweeping the official race area in Morocco. Mauro had already walked off every search map they had. A couple of days alone, then everything crashed. His bottles were empty. His mouth felt like it was full of hot dust. Every swallow burned. Even speaking took effort. Now that awful backup plan was all he had left. He started drinking his own urine. It tasted foul. It came in tiny amounts. Every mouthful turned his stomach. He hated what he was doing to himself. But he couldn't afford to spit out even a drop. His pace slowed. Each step felt heavier. The sun felt closer, personal, angry. His thoughts narrowed down to one single word. Water. He thought about his wife. He thought about his children. He wondered if they were sitting at the kitchen table right now, waiting for a phone call that would never come. Still, he refused to stop. Stopping felt too much like giving up. Days blurred together. The desert stayed silent. Then, around the 5th or 6th day, something appeared on the horizon that didn't belong in this empty landscape. Straight lines. Far ahead, a shape slowly took form. Not a dune, not a hill. A small stone building, half buried in sand. An old marabout, a shrine or hermit's shelter, long abandoned. From a distance, it looked like a ruin. Up close to Mauro, it looked like a chance. Shade from the sun. Walls to break the wind. Proof that humans had once stood here. He stepped inside. The light dropped. The air cooled slightly. For the first time in days, the sun wasn't hammering directly on his skin. He looked around. On the floor, signs of small animals. Then he looked up. Dark shapes hung from the ceiling, barely moving. Bats. Most people would recoil. Mauro reached up, grabbed one, and bit into it. He drank whatever came out. It was warm, it was foul. His stomach tried to reject it. But it was moisture. And moisture meant life. He caught more, he ate what he could of them, he forced every drop down. This was decision 2, the one that showed how far he was willing to go. He chose to stay in that hut. To rest. To save every scrap of strength. To pull every possible calorie and drop of moisture from this place, no matter how revolting it was. It bought him what he needed most, time. Even here, his thirst was unbearable. His body was still breaking down. But he was not dead. Yet, the stone hut slowed the collapse of his body. But it did something else, something worse. It trapped him alone with his thoughts. The silence. The empty horizon through the doorway. No sign of rescue. No sign of people. He started to wonder if anyone was still looking. If his wife had already been told he was dead. If his children had already cried for the last time. If this stone room would quietly become his grave. The race was gone from his mind now. All he could see ahead was a slow, dry end. He reached his lowest point. A place so dark that he decided he didn't want to keep going. He made a choice in that moment that he would later describe as the worst of his life. But even that didn't go as he expected. His body was so dried out, so damaged, that it simply didn't work the way he intended. He didn't die. He woke up, still breathing. Lying there weak, empty, broken, he realized something brutally simple. As long as he was still alive, the story wasn't finished. His children still had a father. His wife still had a husband. The ending hadn't been written yet. That realization led to decision 3, the one that truly changed everything. The next morning, he did something completely different from the day before. He treated his injuries as best he could. He gathered the scraps of supplies he had left. He stepped out of that hut and walked back into the desert. Waiting had almost broken him. Moving gave him back the one thing he desperately needed, direction. His logic was simple. If there was one human structure here, there might be more. Maybe people, maybe a road, maybe a village. He aimed north again. His body was close to done. He walked only in the cooler hours. He hugged any scrap of shade he could find behind rocks, in shallow dips in the sand. He scanned the horizon constantly. A track, a fence, a piece of trash, anything man-made. And here's what he still didn't know. The country where people were searching for him. He had already left it. Without realizing it, Mauro Prosperi had wandered out of Morocco and into Algeria. Later, when rescuers traced his path, they came up with the number I mentioned earlier. He had covered more than 180 kilometers. Over 110 miles. On foot. Half-starved, severely dehydrated. In one of the harshest deserts on Earth. But that number didn't matter to him right now. Only the next step mattered. 9 days since he had seen another runner. Or any human being. Then he noticed something new in the sand. Animal droppings. Fresh. More and more of them. Where there's fresh dung, there's life. Where there's life, there might be people. He kept going. In the distance, shapes shimmered in the heat. He'd seen mirages before. He'd chased them before. They had always dissolved into nothing. This time they didn't. The shapes sharpened. They were goats. And near them a young girl. In the Sahara, goats mean one thing: nomads. The girl was part of a Tuareg family, people who have moved across the desert for centuries with their herds, following grazing and water. Imagine what they saw. A stranger staggering out of the dunes. Clothes torn and sun-bleached. Skin burned black. Eyes sunk deep into his skull. Barely able to stand. In desert culture, turning away from someone like that is almost unthinkable. They helped him. Carefully, tiny sips, so his body wouldn't shut down. They gave him water. Then milk. Small amounts of food. Shade under their tents. Slowly, his body began to crawl back from the edge. Once he was strong enough to travel, they took him to a larger settlement. From there, he was moved to a hospital in Tindouf, western Algeria. Doctors looked at what 9 days in the Sahara had done to a human body. He had lost more than 15 kilos. His kidneys were damaged. His liver was stressed. His body was running on fumes. But he was alive. Back at the race, search teams had spent days scouring the wrong region. His wife in Italy had been told to prepare for the war. She had already started to grieve. Then the impossible news arrived. Mauro Prosperi had been found, alive. 9 days alone in the Sahara. And he walked out of it. Recovery took months. The kidney damage never completely healed. He would carry the marks of those days for the rest of his life. But he went back to his family. Back to his children. Back to work. And incredibly, back to running. Years later, he returned to the Marathon des Sables. This time he finished it. Without getting lost. When Mauro talked about those 9 days, he never bragged. He admitted his mistakes, pushing through the sandstorm instead of digging in. He admitted how much luck was involved, finding that hut, stumbling across nomads in a desert big enough to swallow entire countries. But when everything is stripped away, his survival came down to 3 things. Decision 1, stop thinking like a racer, start thinking like a survivor, ration everything, move smart, not fast. Decision 2, use whatever the desert gives you, no matter how disgusting, no matter how desperate it seems. Pride doesn't keep you alive. Calories and moisture do. Decision 3, after the darkest moment of his life, choose to stand up anyway. Choose to take one more step, and then another. The Sahara doesn't hate you. It doesn't help you. It just doesn't care. And in a place like that, the only thing on your side is how hard you're willing to fight to stay alive. For 9 days, Mauro Prosperi fought that fight. If you're still here, you're the kind of person who values real survival stories. One click keeps this kind of storytelling alive. Like this video, so it reaches more people, and subscribe if you want more true stories from deserts, oceans, jungles, ice, and forgotten places. Next, we go from burning sand to freezing water. When one wrong step threw a man into the open ocean, alone, in the dark with no land in sight.